everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Indivisible, Northern Kentucky District 4's Coffee Klatch Conversations with Candidates. And we're super excited to be offering these. We're going to spend a little bit of time here with our first candidate. And I just want to let you know that this is live streaming. We want you to put your questions in. We have some questions already made up, but you are more than welcome to ask questions as well. And so, without further ado, I will introduce our first candidate, Darrell Link. Hi, nice to meet you,
nice
and
to
welcome,
see you.
welcome. So I'm going to give Darrell a few minutes here to talk about himself, and then we will jump right into questions.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Darrell Link. Some of you may know me as the past county judge in Grant County. I was county judge there from 1998 through 2014. Prior to that, I was a magistrate for the 3rd District in Grant County, and so I have 21 years of local government experience. And then the last 3 years, I've been working as the state director for the area development districts all across the state, doing a lot of things. But in that time, I was also the lobbyist for them and learned a great deal about the legislative process in the General Assembly. Recognized some of the things that was going on up there that I perceived was an assault on working families. And it continued over the summer, and as now, I think I would frame it as an assault on public schools as well. And you probably heard all about the pension fight. And so this open seat came up for the 61st District, and I didn't want to be caught in the future looking in the mirror and wishing I had run. I want to make a difference. I want to go over there and fight for working families. I want to fight for public education. I want to ensure that we have a budget that directly affects in a positive way the folks in our district and all across the state. And so I've chose once again to come out of retirement, put my name down to run, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the possibilities. I'm excited about the possibility of going over there and doing some positive things and being a leader.
Great. Okay. So we are going to jump right into some questions, and I think we're going to start with the one that's on everybody's mind, right? And that is pensions.
Pensions.
So Senate Bill 1.
Yeah.
You know, what are your thoughts on the pension issue, including how should they be funded and the future of the pension system in Kentucky? Do you agree with what the governor's proposing? If not, what do you propose?
Well, I don't agree with what the governor's proposing, nor do I agree with the current version that is out there, even though they sent it back to committee on Friday, of Senate Bill 1 at all. I don't think there's a crisis as they have framed it. And as a matter of fact, I think there are some very smart people that have said those who create a crisis have difficulty in correcting it. And I think that's what happened at the General Assembly. You know, all they had to do was fund the pensions. Since the early 2000s, it was 110% funded. And every time that the actuaries come and said you need to fund the pension, they failed to do it. And so that has got us somewhat into the mess that we're in today regarding the unfunded liability. The other thing that took place with the unfunded liability is the governor has gerrymandered the board. He created a 17-member board, put a lot of his hedge fund managers on there. They want control of the funds. And in his bill that he currently had filed, they were going to create a process where they invested all the money, but they didn't have to tell us how they was going to invest it. You know, they take a lot of money off the top. That was a horrible bill. But the bill that's currently out there is still an assault on teachers. It's taken away the COLAs. It's taken away some of the benefits they have promised. And at one point, it was taking away the health insurance as well.
Right.
And, you know, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of these teachers that have gone and taught their entire 27-year career. And at every point, they made a decision maybe to continue to work till their 27th year, maybe their 30th year. But yet, they're still 57, 58 years old and can retire with full benefit that was promised to them,
right,
including health insurance. And now they find out in this bill that they may not have health insurance, even though they chose to retire. They did everything that they were supposed to do, but yet these people are going to take it away. That's unfair. And so what we need to do in the General Assembly in this state is honor our teachers. We need to honor the commitment to them. And it's not only teachers, it's state workers as well. It's, you know, it's city workers, county workers. We promised them these benefits. And you know, I can tell you for the state workers, many of them haven't had a raise in 10 years.
Yeah.
They haven't had a raise at all. And there's even a statute, by the way, that is supposed to be followed, that they are to get a 5% raise every year. But every year when the budget comes out, they use that little word, notwithstanding, and they take it away. They remove the possibility of any increase. And so these folks count on these pensions, and we need to honor that promise.
So how would you, what would you propose to try to help?
The thing I propose, and it's going to go back to this, almost any question that you ask, currently we have a $10 to $11 billion budget each and every year. But yet we leave $13 billion on the table, in exemptions or corporate exemptions that they don't have to pay taxes. We give away a lot of exemptions for corporations to bring jobs in here, and then as soon as that timeline leaves, they pick up and go to another state. We need to revisit those $13 billion of exemptions and see if there's still a return on investment on any of them. I'm sure that there's some of them that we can bring back in that would generate revenue. For instance, taxing houseboats correctly is one. And now, that's I'm pointing out one of my good friends, Nathan Smith, in Northern Kentucky. He has a houseboat, so he'll probably call me up and say, "Hey, Darrell, don't tax my houseboat." But no, I don't think he would. Nathan's a good guy, and it's things like that, little things like that. We just need to revisit, make sure that return on investment is there, and it's not, bring that money back in. But we have to have a good, balanced budget, a progressive budget that will take care of the needs of the 61st District, the needs of Kentucky, so that we can move forward. And we're not going to do that by cutting pensions. Another thing in regard to the pensions, if the General Assembly would just listen to the attorneys have told them, the Attorney General said, if you all go through with this, you have violated the inviolable contract 21 different times. 21 different times. It's going to go end up in court. We don't need to end up in court. The other thing that they've been told is the CPAs have done the analysis on these pensions and said, hey, the savings that you say is there is not there. As a matter of fact, it's going to cost you more money if you have to create this hybrid plan.
Right.
What in the world are you doing? You want to create more money? So cutting is not the way that we need to move forward.
Right. So would you support other types of revenue sources, or new types of revenue sources? There's a Senate Bill 241 which would add a constitutional amendment that would allow casino gambling and require 100% of proceeds to go to funding retirement systems. So what kind of ideas like that would you be okay with that one, or were there other ones that you would
Sure, I know what you're asking, and I would be open-minded to any new revenue that we could dedicate to pensions or dedicate to the general fund so that we could fund the pensions to whatever the actuaries say. I certainly would. I'm not going to go in closed-minded and tell you that we should take casino gambling off the table. Casino gambling is all around us, okay? As is sports betting.
Right.
All right. Sports betting is a large revenue for these millennials that are coming out, the next generation.
My husband, and he's not a millennial.
He's not.
No,
okay.
but he loves
and
that.
Your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we need to look at all that. Unfortunately, with casino gambling, though, when I worked for AT&T, and I didn't tell people that, but I retired from AT&T in 2003. One of the things that we always tried to do was be first to market. If you're coming out with a product,
right.
Sometimes the product isn't perfect. And sometimes, most of the time our legislation isn't perfect either. But if we can get there first, you win.
Right.
First to market wins, is what I'm saying. And so we have so many other states now that are in front of us on saturated that market somewhat with the casino right over across the river there in Lawrenceburg.
What about like the horse races, though? I know a lot of people talk. We have all these horse races.
Absolutely.
Why,
venues. Yeah. And so there's lots of possibilities. Again, I would be open-minded to all that. Let the data lead us to a good decision there. But it's not only casino gambling. There's other things like medical marijuana that we could dedicate to the budget or to the pensions again if necessary.
Right.
And it has there's a lot of good other side benefits for medical marijuana as well.
Well, let's go right into that topic then. So there's a couple questions. What are your thoughts on medical marijuana bringing businesses, jobs into the state using revenues for education, and also legal recreational marijuana that would also bring revenue, and then reviving the hemp industry. So kind of that whole topic of hemp and marijuana.
Yeah, well, reviving the hemp industry, that's good for our agricultural community. We've been looking for a replacement for tobacco for a long time. We need an alternative crop, and we used to grow hemp in this state. A lot of people don't know that, and so that is a good industry, and there isn't any, you have to cure marijuana in order, I guess, to use it improperly. But hemp has a lot of purposeful use, and so definitely we need to explore.
So what is stopping us from doing that? Are there laws that say we can't grow hemp?
Now that I don't know specifically what is prohibiting us. I don't know that there is. We have people that are growing hemp in the state right now. Chuck Tackett, that used to be in the General Assembly, I believe, is growing it in Scott County, and there's others across the state. So it's being trialed.
Okay.
And I know that Commissioner Quarles, our current commissioner, is for that as well, and he's exploring all those ideas.
Okay.
And so, getting back to medical marijuana, though, certainly that is a revenue source. And it's also, there's a lot of people that are experiencing pain, and I understand the medical marijuana is a cure for them, and it needs to be prescribed by the doctor so that they could live some pain-free lives.
Exactly.
And it's my understanding that it's also a way that we might lower the opiate use
right.
as well. And so those other side benefits are there. Let the data lead us, and we need to explore that.
What do you think is stopping the state of Kentucky from exploring that? Is it just a fear? I mean, why? I mean, because even what I had heard was we could grow it, even if it's not legal here. We could grow it and sell it to Colorado or to California and places like that. So what is stopping us from that?
Yeah, everybody plays on the fear factor, right? And it's my understanding that a lot of people, or a number of people in the law enforcement community, is still against it. I think it's the lack of data. I think it's the fear of unknown, if anything. We need to put the facts on the table, and if the other side wants to have a debate, whoever the other side is, let them put their facts on the table, and let's visit that issue.
Okay. So, kind of moving right into the opioid crisis. There's multiple factors involved. Big pharma, physicians overprescribing. There's a need for alternative pain medications or therapies. What are your thoughts and ideas for combating this epidemic here in Kentucky? It's
definitely an epidemic. We have too many young lives, or lives in general, being lost to this addiction. I would like to see us resurrect as a state the DARE program. My kids grew up in the DARE program in the schools when the officers used to come to our schools and educate them. We definitely need to start with our little ones, and I think that's the place to do it, to educate them on the bad effects of opioid use. We have to also, I think, educate our parents, adults, and it's my understanding a lot of the teenagers and younger children are starting at a very young age, and where they get it right out of the medicine cabinet at home. Those things need to be locked up at home.
So what about people who are prescribed opioids for pain and then they get addicted, and the physicians keep prescribing it, they're pushing these medications. I know recently in Ohio, and I believe in Kentucky, that there was a law passed that you can no longer automatically, electronically send prescriptions to try to prevent some of this over-prescribing. So are there things that you could think about that could address that specific component of this, the pushing of the pharmaceutical companies, the physicians for pain, because that's, I think, where people are getting addicted to it, and then they move into the substitute when they can no longer get the prescription.
They certainly are, and don't allow me to forget that we need more treatment centers as an end result as well. We can't incarcerate our way out of these issues, and right now the incarceration cost in our state is way too high. I was on grand jury, I think about a year ago, there at home in Grant County, and just about every person, let me back up, every person that came through the grand jury had used drugs. They were there for a drug-related charge. They weren't there for murder. They weren't there for rape. They weren't there for breaking in somewhere. They were there because they had some kind of drug residue on a razor blade or on a credit card, some kind of paraphernalia in their cars. And so we incarcerate all of those folks, and it's got to be stopped. If we look at regulating doctors and physicians, and that should be looked at. I'm not real familiar with that field. I'd have to depend on others to educate me how that could come about. But one of the downsides, when you regulate, then the black market grows, right? And I think we have to find a good balance there to ensure that whatever we choose to do to try to prevent that flow of opioids just coming in through maybe now a legal process, trying to stop that we don't create a black market out there that would still allow it to come in and we get dirty drugs, you know, which ends up taking people's lives. And I think we've recognized that with other bills that have been passed here in not too long ago passed, and now we've created a black market for folks to go out there and get bad drugs, and I'm talking about meth, and you know, we took Sudafed off the counters, and so that's just horrible when we do that.
Right, and look what we did with Sudafed and those types of medications. You have to show your driver's license and all sorts of things to get these. And so we have folks that have real needs for things like that, and we've made it more difficult for them to obtain them. And so in all things in life, you have to find a balance, you know. And but let me say again, right now we don't have a good balance in our General Assembly. It's weighted too far one way. Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to move on to higher education. These costs are skyrocketing, right? The average college student ends up tens of thousands of dollars in debt upon graduating from college. My son goes to UK. He's been there for 5 years, you know, and so we've been dealing with this. Do you have any solutions for this crisis? How these kids are coming out of college and, you know, they can get a job, but they're paying these student loans. And it prevents them from getting a house and doing other things, and that's going to put a drag on our economy as well. You know, loan forgiveness, tax credits to businesses who help pay student loans, different ideas like that.
You know, I own a couple blocks down at UK as well. I have 2 children that went through UK and now have very successful careers, and I'm very proud of Kelsey and Derek both. And that was, I think, Kelsey graduated maybe in '03 and Derek in '08 or '09. And we depended largely upon the Keys program, which, by the way, they're trying to change it right now, not for the good. And but yet our tuition cost doesn't even compare to what you are describing now. One of the things, once again, is every time, you know, that the higher education, whether it be Northern Kentucky University, where I graduated, or the University of Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, when those presidents come to the General Assembly and put together their budget requests, they haven't been getting those requests. The state has not been funding them appropriately, and again, it goes back to the budget. You know, there's limited funds there. There's $11 billion. They have to spread it out. I get that, but that isn't sufficient to meet our needs, and so we have to grow that budget to meet those needs so that our kids aren't being saddled with debt when they come out, and that includes teachers. You know, let's talk about teachers just for a moment, because our teachers come out, and many of those young ladies and young men go into the teaching profession. That's where they want to go. That's where they want to be. They have a love for their job. And what do we require them? We require them to go right back and get their master's in a limited number of time, get their rank 1. And some of those young teachers may have no career path that they personally have chose where they want to go into administration. They're in it to teach.
They love to teach.
And so, but we've made it necessary for them to do that, and they take on additional debt. And so, you know, we have these folks putting our teachers down right now, but yet these young kids are going back to college, and we say, oh, you know, they're making $30,000 a year, but, you know, they're paying out $20,000 in additional...
Their graduate degree,
degrees. And so that needs to be revisited as well. You know, is it really necessary? Does every one of them need a master's? Does everyone need to get a rank 1? The young man or woman coming out of college probably teaches just as well if they didn't, if that is their love. If that is their purpose in life, is to untap the potential of my child or your child, to make them the best they can be, then we need to help that teacher do that.
Absolutely. Okay. So Governor Bevin's budget would cut funds from public education, right? I don't know,
It did.
It did. You know, but there's a bill right now, House Bill 134, which would give tax credits for private school tuition. And this would take away from public school tax
Right.
money.
Right.
And the state would lose revenue, $25 to $75 million.
Yeah.
What are your ideas to support funding of our public education system in Kentucky? And what are your thoughts about charter schools and tax credit for private school tuition?
Absolutely. Let's defeat the tax credits for private schools. Let's repeal charter schools. You know, we don't need to create another public education system, a two-tier system that is going to take away funds from our public schools. Our public schools do a grand job. They've done a great job. Every child has access to a good public education, and so we need to fund them properly. And we don't need to create another system that is going to drain away funds, and it will. It will take away funds from our good schools across the state. In the 61st district, I want to tell you, I'm honored to say that we have some of the best schools in our district right now, with Simon Kenton and Scott County and Grant County and Williamstown and Verona. And those kids are getting a great education. I'm proud of the teachers that have stayed there and have weathered this storm and continued to untap those kids' potential.
Right, and we need to keep those teachers, and we need to be able to recruit new teachers and good teachers too.
We do, and I don't understand the assault on teachers. You know, we need to lift our teachers up and put them back on the pedestal where they belong. Yeah. Having graduated high school in '71 and grade school in '67, I can tell you if I did something dishonorable at school, and at the time they would have probably paddled me at school. If I'd gone home, I would have got paddled again. Unfortunately, you know, we have a few parents right now, when their child come home and they've been disciplined at school, they want to go back and argue on behalf of that child. But I can tell you that child probably deserved to be disciplined. And so we need to support our teachers. We need to honor them every way. And, you know, people, and you haven't asked me yet, but people talk about arming teachers, okay? You know, I say let's arm the teachers. Let's arm them with honor, and let's honor them with respect, and let's honor them with the tools and the resources they need so that they can teach, so that our children can be the very best they can be. They are our future. They're the ones that are going to unleash the potential that we have in this state and in this district and in this country. They're going to take us to where we're going to go, and we may not know where we're going to go. They'll take us there because they have a grand imagination. And let's go unleash them. And so let's honor our teachers. Let's arm them with the things that they need to be armed with, like sharp pencils.
Right, and they're asking they're asking for this too, right? They
for a long time. Well, they've been buying them of their own money.
I know. Not just that, but, you know, more resources and counselors and things like that to help with these problems.
Well, the Frisky program, you know, the Frisky program is doing so many good things at our schools, and they're meeting needs that would have otherwise gone unmet. Right. And I've gone to school, and not recently, but when I was county judge, they would call and say, "Hey, can you come down and participate in the reading program at school?" And you know, it was a wonderful idea, and I was glad to do that and spend time with a young man or a young lady and help them learn how to read. It's a fantastic program. So those are the things that we need to do.
Right, I agree. Now, this is a specific question from one of our members. All right. What are your thoughts on charter school plans, and what might that mean for students with severe disabilities? So.
Well, again, you know, my answer to them is, you know, that charter school legislation that was passed, we need to go repeal it as quickly as we can. And let's not give them an opportunity. And it's not only children with disabilities. I mean, it's children with maybe that has difficulty in learning. Right. You know, what I think we see with some of these charter schools is they want to look out there and they only want to take the kids with 3.5s or 4.0s, and then they want to come out and tell everybody how successful they are. Well, you know, if you're trying to be a school that excels and you want to excel, the kids with the 3.5s and the 4.0s probably don't need a great deal of help. They're already there. Right. Who do you go help? You go help the child with the 1.5 or the 2.0. Those are the ones that you lift up. Right. And that's how you excel in your school. That's how you excel at home. That's how you excel in a district. Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So let's go do that.
Yes, I agree. Okay. Okay. So some of the unemployment numbers in Kentucky, here in Kentucky, we're moving on to unemployment and jobs, is due to lack of skilled workers, right? So we talked about higher education and kids going to college, but we have another set of, you know, students who aren't going to go to college, but want to maybe become plumbers and electricians and some of these skilled workers. And you know, here in Northern Kentucky, our economy is booming right now, but
Mm-hmm.
we are struggling to fill some of these skilled labor jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we ensure that we have enough skilled workers in this area to support our growing economy?
Well, again, we need to continue to educate our children in high school and grade school and help them assess as they move along what subjects they need to take with the end in mind as to where they're going to go. Okay, we shouldn't have to try to make every kid alike and think, well, they all need to go to college. Some of them need to go to over here to Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have some great technical schools at our schools now.
Right.
And so that's where we unleash some of that potential. But, you know, that's for the children. And so I think we're starting to do a better job with those children. But there's nothing that needs to take place to ensure that we have a proper trained workforce, and that is the factories and the warehouses and the corporate community out here. They need to communicate to us better as well. They need to tell us what their needs are, and I understand that their needs sometimes change because technology is driving a whole lot of this change, and it changes rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to communicate, you know, with one another, and so that we can go back into our schools and adapt as quickly as possible, because there's a large training cost there for those warehouses and factories and corporations when they get a workforce and they haven't been properly trained, they haven't been properly prepared. And so a lot of that can take place just by communicating, I think.
Do we have systems in place with some of these corporations, like training programs, where we could have retraining for people who need to be retrained, or do they have such programs at some of these warehouses or Amazon or wherever?
Yeah, we have partners out there. Actually, we have a federal program called Workforce Development that is administered largely by the area development districts in the state, and so it has on that Workforce Development Board in all 15 regions of the state a board made up of those human resource managers from some of those corporations, warehouse, factories that should be speaking to that issue. A lot of people don't know that. Again, you know, we need to go out there and market that better and do a better job. But some of it just comes down to communication. But there's another large workforce out there that we haven't tapped into that we have created. And so I don't know where your next questions are going to go, but let me tell you, we make too many people felons these days. They start out at a misdemeanor level. We put them on probation and or parole, and they come out and they violate it. They don't go do something correctly, and the next thing you know, they turn around and they're a felon, and now they can't get a job.
Right.
And so we have a huge workforce out there that is ready to go to work, and we need to identify how we can help them get over that hurdle as well.
Right.
We need to re-examine why, in some cases, they are a felon. And again, that isn't because they have created a major crime in some instances. It's just that they didn't meet the correct parole instruction that they were given. And so let's go re-examine that, and let's give those people another opportunity. I'm all about second chances. I've had a lot of second chances in my life, and I appreciate every one of them.
Yes,
and I hope a few more come my way as well.
Right. That's great. Okay, so let's talk about right to work then.
Oh, Lord.
So it's pretty much anti-union, right?
It is.
Unions protect workers by having the ability to collective bargain and for fair work conditions and wages. What are your thoughts on Kentucky adopting a right to work environment? How would this affect union jobs and workers?
Well, it's a nonsense name, actually, and I don't think it does one thing in bringing businesses or more jobs to this state. And Kentucky, once again, was very late in becoming a right-to-work state. They had held it off for a number of years, but obviously when the GOP got control last year and they moved that bill without debate, quite frankly, very swiftly through the House and through the Senate, and didn't even listen to the other side nor the workers here at home. But it is an assault on working families. And unions have helped create better conditions, not only for their families, but for every family in this state.
Right.
You know, if a person has a union job, hopefully they have a good living wage. hopefully they have health insurance and access to health insurance. Hopefully someone in that family that is working has access to a pension someday that they can retire. And none of those things make you rich. You know, no union family's going out there and buying houseboats and traveling all over the world in yacht. You know, what do we want? What is it that we want? You know, usually we want shelter, don't we? We want to put food on the table. We want a loving family that we can go to church and maybe if we're lucky, take a vacation, okay? And usually the money that we earn, whether it be in retirement or through our avocation, we're going to return that to businesses and spending money. So, you know, this whole trickle-down economics thing and giving it to corporations so that they can come in here and all of a sudden we're all going to do better, that is a bunch of nonsense. That is nothing more than a bunch of nonsense. Now, you know, where am I in regard to unions? I'll tell you, my father was a truck driver, and he drove for Dance Freight Lines and Consolidated Freightways, and he retired, and he drove when we didn't have I-75. His route was Cincinnati to Chattanooga, and he went down US 25, a very curvy road, a lot of foggy nights, and he put himself in harm's way to put food on our table. We were never without food on our table, and one of the traditions that I can try to continue today. When my dad come home at Christmas, he usually brought us a box of oranges, a box of tangerines and fruit and all kinds of nuts. He would stop at the corner store and we would get those little bottled Cokes, okay, and some peanuts and peanut butter brittle. And so even today, you know, with my dad being gone, that's a tradition I continued. I go to the store and I get those tangerines and those oranges and that little bottle of Coke and that peanut brittle, and the kids look forward to it. And I think in that 1 week span of the holidays, from Christmas to New Year's Eve, we drink that whole case of little Cokes.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, and then we stay off of them the rest of the year, but still, it's just a great time to look forward to. And then personally, at 19 years of age, I got married my childhood bride, Candace. We went to Florida, and I was an operating engineer for 2 years down there. And in operating engineers, you went to the union hall, and they dispatched you out to a job. And I was young, again, 19, and if I didn't walk the picket line on Friday, I didn't work the next 4 days. And so I had a 4-day week job. Monday through Thursday I worked, and Friday I walked the picket line. I came back home and actually worked for SRI Trucking over here in Florence. It was a great job. It was one I thought I would retire at. And they went bankrupt. And I was in Teamsters Local 100 there. And then after that, I found myself to be 32 years old, just had a child. Kelsey was born in 1982. They went bankrupt in 83, and I thought, I need something stable. And so I went across the river, knocked on AT&T's door until they hired me. They started me at $4.25 an hour. I was in CWA, and Uncle Sam thought I died because I only made $4.25 an hour. But it was a great career, and I, you know, worked there for 20 years. But it was actually working for AT&T that I come home and told my wife I'm going to change professions. Now, my wife at the time, we'd been married probably 20 years, and she said, what are you going to do? She's kind of used to me at this point. And I said, well, I think I'm going to go into politics or become a preacher. And Candy said, you better go into politics because I don't play the piano. And so that's how I ended up in local politics.
Great. So what would you do if you were elected to try to counter this right to work?
Repeal it.
Repeal it.
Absolutely. Yeah, file a bill and let's get it repealed. Yeah, it's not needed. It doesn't do one positive thing. And once again, I want to go over there specifically for working families. I want to fight for them each and every day.
Great.
We need some balance.
That's right. So speaking of working families, minimum wage. And so there is a Senate Bill 17. It would increase the minimum wage for many workers to $10 an hour by 2020. Do you support this, and do you think this is enough?
I certainly support raising the minimum wage. I don't think that is enough. You know, it's very difficult, $10 an hour, to meet the needs of a family. I don't care how small the family is. That's just very difficult to do. We have a farm at home, and you know, I have some folks come over and help me put up square bale hays. But my goodness, I give those folks $12 an hour. I would feel bad if I gave them anything less. It's hard work and it's hot, and you know, $10 doesn't buy you a whole lot these days.
Right.
And so, yeah, I definitely think it needs to be more.
So $15 an hour. That's what is kind of being proposed out.
Right.
In
other
country.
areas. In other
right.
areas.
Right.
Absolutely.
Do you think that though? Are there any downsides to that?
Well, there are downsides, you know, in any business that you have. I don't care how big or how small. The largest expense that you have is labor itself, right? And so it sometimes does create hardships on small businesses that have very few employees. That many times it's family working, right? It's the wife and the husband, and they're trying to make a go of it. And so as that business grows, hopefully they'll be able to meet the needs of those workers, and many of them do. Some fail, and they blame it on the fact that, you know, we had to pay out too much money, or the government, you know, got into this and they told us that we need to do that, and so we need to work through those issues.
Right. So do you think it would be better to do it as a stepwise over the course of, I don't know, 10 years, a certain time period where it goes up to 10 and then a couple years later, or to kind of get some of these businesses kind of acclimated?
Graduate into it,
yeah, like,
easily.
and so they would know that it's coming,
Well,
and
I think
then be
that's,
able to.
yeah, you know, I think that's an
plan for that.
approach, but you'll find in the General Assembly, you know, you can start off with an extreme, and through debate, it's going to end up probably either lesser or more.
Right.
Right. And so those things will be ironed out as that debate takes place, what that end result would look like, but that's a good approach. That's a softer approach.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about taxes? There's a House Bill 29, it's called the Comprehensive Tax Modernization Bill. It would make the tax system more fair by lowering taxes for low and moderate income families, reinstate the real estate tax, the estate sales tax, raise tax on cigarettes, and expand sales tax to luxury services, close loopholes on corporations, and add an earned income credit. Do you support these proposed tax changes? Do you think that these proposals will be passed by the current legislative body?
Well, in the one that you just described, I don't think it would be passed by the current legislative body. I do support taxes such as that. I'll tell you again, in my 21-year experience, or there were 24 experience, if you include the area development districts, there were 12 tax studies accomplished, completed, and put on the shelf. Okay, and so there's a lot of answers over there getting dust already that we need to look at. But I'll tell you what I don't support, and this is where it's going to go. Now, I'm not against, you know, I'm not against one party. I'm not against, I don't even know all my opponents. Okay, I haven't met them yet, and some of them have already attacked me, and that's okay. I'm not against them either. What I'm against is the ideology. Is that let's get rid of the income tax that we have. Let's get rid of all and let's go to a full consumption tax like they've done in Kansas and Ohio and Indiana and other places. And they're not working. You know, again, they think it's a trickle-down effect. If they go that way, all of us on lower income and those that are on fixed income, that we're going to be paying more and everything is going to be fine. Well, we have limited amount of funds ourselves. And so, you know, giving the corporation a break and giving them a better deal isn't going to lift up Kentucky. Right. It just isn't. It does not work that way. Right. And so that's the playbook that they're currently playing out of, and that's where they're going to go. And so the question becomes to the voters out there: who do you want over there fighting for you? You know, do you want somebody over there that's going to go by that playbook? Okay, or do you want somebody that's going to go over there and fight for working families, working people like me and you? Right. You know, I hope they choose to send me over there to fight for them.
Right, right. We need somebody to fight for us. Absolutely. We do. Okay. There's another bill, House Bill 372. It's called the Anti-Marriage Equality Bill, and this would allow social services and housing discrimination against same-sex married couples. If you are elected, what would you do to ensure that Kentucky does not discriminate against anyone, regardless of race, religion, or sexual orientation?
Well, we shouldn't discriminate against anyone, and actually it's already been ruled by the Constitution of the United States that we shouldn't. And so we need to honor the Constitution of the United States. As a matter of fact, we all will take an oath to do that, right? As elected officials, and that is what we need to follow in regard to any person. You know, I'm a person that thinks that we are to be compassionate and kind toward every person, regardless of their color of skin or their sex or orientation or anything else. Every person has potential. They were created for a specific purpose, and we need to help them find that purpose.
So let me just ask a question, since I'm not an expert on the government by any means. If we have a law at the national level about anti-discrimination, and then Kentucky comes in and tries to put it forth a law like this. How can that happen if it goes against what is at the federal level?
Well, it usually doesn't. I'll tell you the way it works from state to local. When the state government passes a law, local governments can't create an ordinance or a law that will erode away that state law that is being passed. Now, we can make that state law stronger, okay, but we can't make it weaker. And it plays the same way from the state to the federal level. The federal level passes something, and they say this is the constitutional law, and you will follow it, and that's what you have to do at the state level. You can't erode it, okay? You can look at it, maybe make it stronger or tweak it in that way, but you're not going to take away from it.
Okay. This is a touchy subject, but reproductive rights. So many bills are being presented in the legislature right now that would limit a woman's reproductive health rights, and we feel like we're under attack. You know, what's your stance on women's right to choose what is best for her reproductive health? Here in Northern Kentucky, St. Elizabeth has taken over our healthcare system, and they won't even perform some procedures due to their belief, such as tubal ligation. So how do we take back our reproductive health rights here in Kentucky?
Yeah, that is, that is very difficult, and, I'll say this once again. In 1973, the Supreme Court ruled and made it constitutional that you can have a right to your reproductive rights, and so what can you do as a state representative? One of the things that I did as a county judge, and I would like to continue it as a state representative, is to support organizations that help women make great decisions, like Caring Out Pregnancy, that would help a young mother make the decision that she's going to have the support that she needs, that she can carry that child to term, to help that family get the resources they need so that they can provide for the needs of the children. And one of the other things that I think that we can continue to do is to look at our foster program and to our adoption process. And do we have some weaknesses there that disallow us from helping children that need foster parents or need adopting? Now, I don't know. I look around at a lot of folks at home, and they've gone through the adoptive process, and they have adopted some wonderful children, some beautiful children that are going to do great things, I'm sure. But they had to go to another country. They had to go to Romania, or they had to go to China, or they had to go to Nigeria to do that. And it makes me pause and think, do we not have Kentucky kids that should be adopted or should be fostered? And where are we with those? And so, we'd like to certainly look at those, but I don't think that we need to get in the business, the government to get in the business, to get in between you, the woman, the lady that has a difficult decision to make, and the doctor.
Okay. Switching gears here, we're going to talk about House Bill 227, anti-solar bill.
Okay.
This would reward monopoly utility companies and punish consumers. If passed, would put rooftop solar out of reach for most Kentuckians. Kentucky needs to keep up with the rest of the country in terms of clean, green energy. What would you do to help protect and promote the use of clean energy?
Well, that's an interesting bill, and I don't know all the specifics of it, but it looks like it's going to limit the potential of a homeowner to get the revenue or the credit on their electric bill that they anticipated they were going to, right, by investing into a solar system. I think they were told if you invest in a solar system, which I think is quite high, then you're going to get a tax credit on that use. And so, again, we need to live up and honor to those promises. Now, one of the things that I recently did, and I don't know how it's going to work out, but there's a solar farm in Winchester, and through On Electric, I could buy a panel out there, and they were to give me tax credit. Now, I don't know if this bill affects those solar farms or not. I don't know if they just left them off the table and exempted them in some way. But again, the person that made the investment there at the home, we need to honor that and give them the credit that they thought they were going to get. That's a huge investment on their part. Now, what we hope is that those costs will continue to come down, that they'll continue to come down so that they would be available to every person that wants to go solar or wind power out of the way. But I think we're seeing more and more solar farms come up. There's one now on 75 that I see in between Crittenden and Dry Ridge a lot of solar panels out there. So I think that is a system that's going to continue to evolve as we see those type of things. And maybe that's where we all go to, is we buy the panel at the solar farm so that we don't have to
have it on our house or
yeah,
in our yard.
yeah,
right?
yeah, right, and have to maintain it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to talk about guns now. We've
Okay.
kind of been,
Yeah.
kind of mentioned it earlier, but gun regulations. Should Kentucky have stricter gun ownership laws? What do you think about assault rifles being banned?
Yeah. You know, banning, once again, is whenever you ban something, you create a black market, and I really struggle with that issue all the time. I grew up as a young gun owner. My dad had shotguns. He took us hunting at a very early age, and we weren't allowed to put a shell in the shotgun if we were in the house. And if we were outside the house, when we loaded up, we better have the safety on. And we didn't have access to these assault rifles that they have access to today, and they're doing harm all over our nation and even on our own state here. It just wasn't something that we had to deal with. But let me say, in regard to guns, even then, in the 1960s, we had regulations. I don't understand these folks that say, well, if you regulate this gun, you're taking away my rights, because that is not correct.
Right.
I'll use the president term. That's fake news, because back in the 60s, when we went rabbit hunting or when we went duck hunting, you could only put 3 shotgun shells in your shotgun. It had something in there. I think they called it a plug, and you weren't supposed to take that plug out and put a couple more shells in. That was illegal, so it was regulated. And let me say, it's interesting that one of the reasons that they did that is because some of the species of ducks were going extinct, and so they were trying to protect the ducks, okay?
Wow.
So, let me ask the question back to you then, as a good politician would. It's okay for us to protect the ducks, but we don't want to protect our children?
Right.
Really?
Exactly.
I mean, it's nonsensical. Now, there's another regulation. There's another regulation that is already out there, and that is children that are less than 21. Today, they can't go buy a handgun at the store. Okay, and so I think it is okay for them to say, hey, they should not be able to have access to an AR-15. I don't know for a fact. I mean, I only see what I see on the news and how it's reported, but it seems to me that all these shooters that are going in, it seems like maybe they either made a rash decision and went in there and bought an AR-15, or their parents had one and failed to put it up and they had access to it. And that's another thing that we need to do.
Right.
We need to educate our parents. If you buy this weapon, lock it up.
Right.
Do not provide access to a children. And I don't know. I'm just going to say right off the cuff, we may have a lot of children that unfortunately take their own life because they had access to a gun.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And it might be greater than the knuckleheads that are going in there and shooting up our schools. And so we really need to do a better job at home. Lock these guns up.
So what would you propose to try to get people to do that?
I think we do it through education. We have the ability to educate, do we not? We have the ability right now to go out there and tell these parents, hey, if you buy a weapon, you need to lock it up. And maybe it's an issue where, you incur some liability if
Right.
it gets in the wrong hands. You incur some liability if it ends up being used in the wrong way that will going to take someone's life. Let me tell you another way that they regulated guns, and this probably come out of the early 20s. I don't know. I've never seen one. But if you have a shotgun, you can't saw off the barrel. Why can't you saw off the barrel? Because they don't want you to, A, inflict harm to yourself,
Right.
because, it's difficult to do with a big, long barrel on a shotgun.
Right.
Or 2, they don't want you to be easily to conceal
carry
it
it.
under your coat and carry it. It's regulated.
Right.
Okay? So there's ways that we can get at this issue and follow the data and make those differences and make our schools safe again. A school should be the bedrock of safety.
Right.
Bedrock of safety. How do we get there? Let's go get there, because when we have our children go to school, we don't want them to have to be concerned and looking over the shoulder and being distracted. Is there somebody out there who's going to bring harm to me, Dave, that's going to prohibit them from learning? Do
Exactly. Right. I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. So, okay. So we've been chatting for about 50 minutes now, so we're going to wrap it up.
we? Okay.
And if you would like to speak again to our audience,
Okay.
just for a minute or so, to say, why vote for you. I think you presented a lot of great ideas and a lot of good feeling and emotion, and I think that you're a great candidate.
Thank you.
So please, feel free for the next minute or so to just tell people why should they vote for you.
Okay. Well, once again, my name is Darrell Link. I'm running for State House Representative in the 61st District. And I think there's a lot of things that need to change in Frankfort. And that change isn't going to come about until we send folks like myself over there that will have the ability to debate these issues on the floor, that have the confidence to do that. And let me say that I'm not going over there for a career. We have too many folks over there that have made a career out of it right now. And the decisions that they make, usually they ask themselves one question: if I choose to do this, will it get me reelected? I'm not going over there to be reelected in 2020. I'm going over there hopefully in 2018, if you choose to send me over there, to make a difference in 2018. And hopefully after we make some of these positive differences and we get this state back on the right track again, that you can determine whether you want me to go back in 2020. I don't even know if I would want to go back in 2020 at this point, quite honestly. I just want to go over there, to address our budget, to fight for working families, and I want to be able to look at my grandson and my granddaughter that's going to be here in April. And one day they may say, Opa, they call me Opa, that's German for Grandpa. They might say, did you do everything you could to make our school safer? Did you do everything you could to make this state better? And I hope to be able to look at them and say, yes, I did. I hope that you will choose to vote for me on May the 22nd of 2017, and again in November, if given the opportunity, if I prevail in this primary, so that we can go to Frankfort, Kentucky and make a difference for your family, for your children's future, and for a better Kentucky. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And join us again at 7 o'clock. We'll have another candidate. And every Sunday through May, we will be doing this as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really nice to meet you.
Awesome. Thank
Thanks.
you.